Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Lunch Break today. I'm Carrie, and today we will be talking with Pataranutaporn, to learn what he's been up to recently. Pat is a technologist-scientist-artist at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where he's a part of the Fluid Interfaces research group at MIT Media Lab, which specializes in designing on-body technology for human enhancement. Pat's research is at the intersection of biotechnology and wearable computing, and his work was in The Future of Food exhibition. For everyone joining us, we will have an audience Q&A section at the end, so you can send in any questions you have throughout our talk using the Q&A box on Zoom. So Pat, thanks so much for being with us. Can you start by just giving us an overview of your work?
Cool. Yeah, thank you so much, Carrie, and thanks for having me on this lunch break talk. I'm Pat. I'm from the MIT Media Lab, and I'm gonna kind of share with you a little more about what I'm doing here. So I always start my talk with my inspiration, dinosaur. That's something that I like as a kid and still like it now, even as an adult. And I think dinosaurs are sort of like the symbol of the work that I'm doing. And the thing that I'm interested in about dinosaur is not just it's cool and everything, but I'm also interested in how would the dinosaur would live in the future and interface with technology. And that's exactly what my group worked on at the MIT Media Lab. But instead of focusing on the intersection of dinosaur and technology, we work on human enhancement and the future of cyborg. And my group, for some of you that don't know, the Media Lab is part of the different research group here at the MIT Media Lab. And you can see that different groups are like explore different topic. The model of the MIT Media Lab is to be sort of like an anti-disciplinary lab that sort of like looking art, science, engineering, and design, and sort of like combine all of these together to invent the future. And this is sort of like rooted in the Bauhaus or like history, where we think about different medium and how do we combine sort of like the engineering and the aesthetic together. And my group is one of these 26 sub research group. If anyone is interested, feel free to check out the Media website. My group specifically, Fluid Interface, as Carrie mentioned, we look at the intersection of human computer interaction and also how would technology on the human body sort of like augment us and allow us to have new capability. And more specifically, we look at the way that technology can understand the context or the information, so like coming out from the human body, and then use it to give the intervention or assistance in the time that we need them. And by doing that, create sort of like a closed loop augmentation where technology sort of like enhance sort of like our capability in the time that we need them, create a condition for the body to thrive, and enhance our cognitive capabilities. When we think about the device that are on the body, we can capture, I think, two distinct signal. One we call electrophysiological signal, which is like, electrical signal coming from the body, like EEG from the brain, EMG from the muscle, and so on. And another signal that I think is also really interesting is the biochemical signal, which is coming from sort of like the chemistry inside the human body. Is like the change in hormone, protein, gene expression, and so on. And by capturing this, we can sort of like enhance human capabilities across scale. We have project in our group that is very futuristic, like thinking about dream engineering. How do we program people to dream in a specific way? To thinking about how do we use AI and human to create a better decision, or thinking about enhancing memory. How do we have an AI that can sort of like become the memory prosthesis or the extension of the human memory? And if you think about this in a broader scale, human augmentation is always sort of like a thing that continue from when we have magic, we put magical object on the body. Right now we have digital device that sort of become the new enhancement. And in the future, as we explore more about the biodigital interface, we might have biological device that enhance us. So the trend of human augmentation always sort of like progress forward. And my work specifically look at sort of like this human augmentation across scale and application. One, we call it Homo Symbioticus, where we think about the biological augmentation of the human body. Another one we call Homo Symbioticus, where we think about the human and AI symbiosis. Yeah, which I'm gonna kind of go through. For the Homo Symbioticus, one thing that I'm being kind of interested in is how technology around us sort of like giving us information in a way that is very natural to the way that humans communicate. Like we talk to computer, we hear computer speak back to us. And I was kind of intrigued by the idea of whisper, which kind of go one step beyond just regular information, because it had the idea of intimacy and insight around it. And you see whisper sort of like one thing that sort of like happen across a human culture. And like in Hamlet, you have the ghost father come back and whisper to his son about his future and what he needs to do. So we're really interested in the idea that in the future human and computer might have this kind of intimate mentor or mentee relationship. And as we moving in the age of voice AI interface, we really want to explore, what to extent can this AI system sort of like have this intimate relationship with us. And the first project sort of like take inspiration from wearable device that sort of like a wearable magical device that exists in many culture that allow the person to talk to his or her past of like ancestor or people of the past, so that they can kind of continue to live in a more kind of homogeneous way, and have this wisdom that can be kind of passed on from generation to generation. The first project, that's why it's called Wearable Wisdom, where we create a context-aware audio-based system for mediating wisdom from personal mentors to users. And this project, we sort of like interested in the idea of using computer system to provide sort of like mentorship support or give sort of like inspiration and motivation to the person. As we know from the movie Star Wars that mentor is really important, and many psychological science research actually support that. But the problem that we have with mentorship is that for many times that we need them the most, they are not always sort of like with us. So how do we use computer system to sort of like step in this role and help the user sort of like have this mentor that might already pass away, or someone that they may not have personal relationship with? Like how do you have insight from Einstein or Yoda or fictional character that you think could be an inspirational role model for you? That's sort of like the goal of this project. And what we came up with is a voice interface that connect the user with an AI system trained on a corpus of text based on this mentor that the user can pick. And this mentor can range from people that is like a scientist, artist, even fictional character like Yoda, and many more. And from what we kind of experiment with, we found that once we sort of like have the AI be the curator of this wisdom and give the user the wisdom that is relevant to the context that they are in, based on the question that user asks or based on the sensor information coming from the device, we can deliver something that's more relevant and more inspiration compared to the control. And we imagine that in the future, device like this will allow people to have a voice interface that not just give them like weather to the like the information about the today weather or news information, but be able to kind of broaden their perspective and give them inspiration or thing that is meaningful to them, or allowing them to have like the motivation that they need for completing difficult tasks, or even connect with the culture that they are part of, or connect with sort of like wisdom that passed on from generation to generation embedded in AI. The second project in this area sort of like take that further and think about, what if instead of having a relationship with the mentor that is an external person, what if you can have a relationship with you, with yourself, but different version of you? If you look at, throughout history, we see many kind of augmented being, whether it's a god or monster, or even Siamese twin. All of these people or creature have multiple heads, and having multiple head, is an interesting form of augmentation. One of the sort of like god in Thai culture where I'm from, actually have 10 head, and then he can kind of talk to different head to get insight about what he needs to do next. So we really think that the idea of having multiple head is really interesting, especially in terms of human augmentation. So what we create in this project, we call them machinoia. Machine come from machine, which means technology, and noia means soul. And combining technology and soul together, we are asking, how do we use technology to extend ourselves and create different version of ourselves that can sort of like come back and talk to us. And what we create is in this project is using generative adversarial network, or GAN, which is a type of machine learning model that can be used to generate realistic face, but also modify them in different ways. As you see, I'm creating a representation of my face that is older, younger, more feminine, more masculine, and different feature or different version of me altogether. And not only that, we can also use deepfake algorithm, which is used for kind of creating or generating sort of like animation of the face based on sort of like realistic image, to sort of like create animation of people based on the content that we want to sort of like drive that animation to happen. And we can do this to actually drive these face to have conversation, to have like different facial expression, and be able to respond back to us. And we built an AI system that control this phase based on our private, but there's a private work in our group where we use computer model to sort of like model after someone's attitude. So in my project, we use social media information that can be sort of like collected over time to sort of like understand how my current personality respond to different topic, and then use that to sort of like project into the future. How would the future Pat respond to certain topic? Or how would the young Pat respond to different topic? And combining that in one body, I can have, my head that is a biological head, and two head that is driven by AI that are learning from my data and allowing me to have conversation with myself in different version. And we think that this project will sort of like, bring awareness about, the question about technology and identity, and how might we use AI in a way that is meaningful and sort of like help us understand, ourselves like better. And as Yuval Harari in his famous book, Homo Deus, say that in the future, technology will enhance human to become God. We ask, how would this technology and human symbiosis with AI lead to that future? The second area of my research is focusing on what we call Homo Symbioticus, which think about the idea of biological augmentation. As you know, computer technology is becoming much smaller and smaller and having more and more intimate relationship with the body. We see from computer going from mainframe into desktop, handheld, and on-body technology. And in the future, we could see the potential future where computer become part of ourselves. We recently have a review article called Living Bits that look at what's happening in the area of human-computer interaction that intersect with living system, in with biological and bacteria and so on. And we think that this is a rich area of research where we look at the intersection of computing and living computing, which is biological system. And the reason that I'm sort of like drawn into this work is because of this book, Biodesign, Nature, Science, and Creativity, by William Myers, which I think Julia also play a critical role in this book as well. It's actually, this book is actually very meaningful to me. It was given to me by my mother during one of my birthday, and it's actually one of the book that lead me into thinking about art and science. So in this area of research, we have some project that I'm gonna sort of like go over. One of them we call it Wearable Lab on the Body, which is currently funded by NASA TRISH, the organization that explore the intersection of space technology and human health, where we think about the idea of taking what we have done in the lab. Especially if you're sick right now, people go to the hospital or go to the lab to get tested whether they have COVID or not. There are a lot of medical kind of tests that is being done in the lab. We think a lot about how do we kind of take it on and put it on the human body and create a miniaturized device that can sort of like do a monitoring of different human biomarker continuously. And the reason we want to do that is because in space there is no hospital, right? There's only medical officer that usually one or two in the space station or in spacecraft. So if we can design a device like this that can continuously sort of like sample your biofluid, looking for markers of diseases and auto condition, we can sort of like create a healthy astronaut and even people living in space in the future. And now, as we seen that SpaceX just launched, two astronaut into space. We're also thinking a lot about how would technology intersect that intersect with the human body can enhance sort of like the performance of astronaut or keep them, to stay healthy. So not just giving them information about their body, but be able to provide intervention that, lead to a healthy lifestyle in space. We're thinking a lot about the idea of using wearable device or on-body interface to produce chemical or compounds that could allow the person to kind of stay healthy, either by producing medicine or adjusting hormone or even creating a stimulus, like when we drink coffee in the morning. These compounds we cannot produce biologically or produce in the condition that is not in the concentration that's not enough for our bodily function. So we're thinking about the idea of using wearable device for bioproduction, which is using the cell to produce different kind of compound that could be, sustainable for suitable for the human life. And with that, we create what we call a wearable biosynthesis. This is a reactor, which is a wearable device that allow the living cell engineer to produce different compound to have a whole symbiosis with the human body, and allowing them to sort of like become this kind of tiny molecular factory that inhabit our body. And from our experiment, we are right now printing a lot of like wearable microfluidic device that will host this cell and also be able to optogenetically control them, so we can program different pathway to produce different compound based on the need that we have. And in the long run, we imagine, wearable device that can do, continuous sensing with, bioproduction and hopefully administration. So then in the the future far away, astronaut will be able to sort of like have this closed loop augmentation and allow them to have like a healthy lifestyle in space. And to bring it home, I would like to also share my last project, which talk about this vision of closed loop augmentation, which is actually the project that we present in the SciArt, the Future of Food exhibition, where we're thinking about the idea of using food as a medium of computation. As right now we are using different kind of sensory modality, from visual to haptic to auditory, to communicate with computer. And computer have been sort of like being helpful to us by providing useful information and all kind of feedback that allow us to have a modern life. And in the future, we wonder, what if we add this new sensory input, which is taste, which is something that is not usually associated with computing, right? And with that, we create a project called Making Food with the Mind, where we connect the food 3D printer that can be used to print different kind of food with the EEG helmet, which can read emotional signal from sort of like the brainwave. And by doing this, we are imagining the future where the future of food is not created from our hand, but rather come directly from our mind. And this is really interesting because you are creating this seamless interaction between mind to material. And not only just food, but in general, if you can kind of think of an object and have that being fabricated for you, how would that change the way that we interact with sort of like everyday environment and interaction? And in this project, what we do is we use OpenBCI, which is an open source EEG helmet that can be worn on the person, connected with a machine learning algorithm that is trained on different emotional data collected from EEG, and then use that to drive the food 3D printer that can print different kind of food based on the emotion that you have. And we have done different kind of mapping from having the food change the shape based on the emotion that you have, or change the portion based on how the arousal level, like how active you are in terms of your cognitive sort of activity at that time. And by doing that, we are asking the question about on what is the future food would look like when we sort of like couple the sensor with the fabrication technology. Yeah. And with that, I would like to sort of like maybe conclude by saying that, in the future, this wearable augmentation and on-body interface will become sort of like more ubiquitous. And as we see in this history, we see that, even even the technology might change, the form might change from magic to digital to biological. The idea of augmentation has been something that humans have been striving for a long time. And I would end with the quote from one of my favorite heroes, SciArt, where he said that the reason that we need to combine art and science together is to create sort of like a contingent and contestable future, so that we can select the future that we decide and understand what future we don't want to kind of create. And by combining that art and science together, we'll be able to kind of open our possibilities to new ideas that could be impactful to our life. And with that, I'll end with a quote from Leonardo da Vinci, where he said that, to develop a complete mind, we need to study the art in science and study the science in the art, and realize that everything is connected to everything else. And with that, I will end with another dinosaur, my favorite. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Your work is really fascinating. And it brings up a lot of questions and possibilities for what the future can look like. You're talking about human enhancement, and your work is so close to the human body and its functions. I was wondering, in your eyes, do you see a place where human stops and technology begins? Or is there a future where these meld? Would that be the ideal, or will they always be separate in some way?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. If you look at the term cyborg, which is an interesting term by itself, which right now is associated with a lot of like science fiction movies. It actually come out from a very scientific kind of context. Came out from a paper by Manfred Klein in the 90s, where he talked about the idea of cybernetic organism. And one thing that he said specifically in that context is that to become cyborg is to be free, and to use technology to sort of like lifting the human sort of like quality in the next level, and have the technology do sort of like some of the mundane tasks that we human don't want to do, so that our brain and our mind can become more creative. So in that sense, I think that I think the boundary between human and technology is almost like doesn't exist, or seamless. And I think that's also one of the reasons we call our group fluid interface. It's not about water or liquid. It's about how do you create the flow between the human and technology together in the way that lead them to the better life, or to the and enhance the person to become who they want to become. Yeah, I think that's sort of like the goal. Yeah.
Yeah. I know in these conversations, like ethics and the morals of this work comes up. I wonder if you have any thoughts on that, on the potential risks of this, or the reliance of humans on technology.
Yeah, that's a really important question, and in our group we talk and think a lot about that. So two things. I think the first thing is that many of these projects are prototypes that we sort of like explore in the lab. And as Stella say, we want to explore different futures so we can understand which one could be deployed in the real world, which one we realize that is not good, or is not compatible with the human. So by kind of opening up new possibility, we can kind of see new ideas that can emerge. But the second point that I think is really important is how do we understand the dynamic of this technology with the human body, right? We don't want human over kind of relying on the technology, right? And we don't want technology to like dominate us. So I think it's in the design of the technology itself, and also in the ethics that go into creating this technology as well. Patty, my advisor who run the fluid interface, always say that some technology come in and help us with things that we don't want to do, and we might lose ability to do certain things to technology. For example, right now we don't walk 3,000 miles. We can ride a plane, right? We don't need to have the skill of walking across continent anymore, because that's not something that we do. But some skill like being creative, or be able to think critically, could be something that technology can augment us, but we also want to have that skill or that ability to do it without technology as well. So we could also think about technology being sort of like the trainer or the teacher or the mentor that allow us to develop that skill. And when we reach that point, we can decide to change the technology, remove it, or have the technology challenge us to the next step or enhance us to the next step, but not doing it for us, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. in your project with having wisdom told through these glasses, you mentioned mentorship, and
Yeah.
I was wondering, who would you like to have giving you that wisdom and that advice?
Yeah, for me, I always, I think my work is at the intersection of art, science, design, engineering. I always want to have perspective from people that are sort of like working in different field. I want, sometimes I want wisdom from Einstein, Marie Curie, who is like a scientist, with artists like Picasso or, Van Gogh, who is like impressionist. And, I think by having sort of like the wisdom from them is not, sometimes it's not just about the work, to see the work, but to see what they were thinking behind the work is really inspiring, and will spark a lot of idea. Neri Oxman, who's one of the professor at the Media Lab, she had this website called Creativity, where she talked about how art, science, design, engineering sort of like feeding on one another and giving sort of like feedback to one another, and at the end sort of like create this continual loop that generate human creativity in general. Yeah, so I think that's really, really important. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Your work covers such a wide range of topics. How do you come up with these ideas? What leads you to create your next project?
Yeah, so some of them, for example, Machineor project actually came after I watched Godzilla movie and I see the three-headed dragon that was fighting with Godzilla. Some of them came from, like fun experience like that. Some of them, were sort of like, pushed forward by people that have issue like NASA, have the issue of how do you track, astronaut health in space and things like that. It's really interesting and inspiring. So I think different project, came from, different source of inspiration. But at the end, I think for me, I'm always trying to think about the project from different perspective. Like what would the artist do in this case, or what would the technologist or what would the scientist do? And at the end, if you can kind of wear different hat and think about the project from different angle, you'll be able to come up with like something that sort of like tackle that in a more interdisciplinary way. And another thing that I think is very unique to the MIT Media Lab is that we have people from different backgrounds. I mean, in our research group, we have artists, we have designer, we have cognitive scientists, we have engineer, and all these people sort of like live in this research lab together, and we talk about all kind of things, and many times that conversation lead to interesting project. Yeah.
Great. You've mentioned a few times the word magic, and I think it's interesting to bring that up in the realm of technology. Yeah, I was just wondering if you could talk about magic as inspiration for you, and if you see technology as magic, or if breaking down how something works
Yeah.
makes it somehow less magical or more magical to you.
Yeah, so I think one of the great sci-fi author, Isaac Asimov, once said that is advanced, like very advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So I think I think technology and magic had this quality that is really special to the human. That's why we sort of like allure to these two things. And actually in the Media Lab, one of the sort of like keyword or core value of the Media Lab, we have magic, mischief, and magic, mischief, impact, and uniqueness. And we try to be the place where we sort of like explore this intersection between magic and mischiefs. Like how do you think outside the box and not be bounded by tradition, and use this magical quality to create impact by combining our uniqueness, ability to bring art, science, design, engineering together. So I think magic is definitely one of my biggest inspiration. And to your question, whether when you understand something or sort of like unpack it, whether it become less magical, I think in many cases it actually make it more magical, because you start to understand the complexity, or in many cases you understand biology, the complexity of living system. You start to realize like how magical it is that these things come together and work so perfectly that we can talk, we can think, we can breathe, and we can do all kinds of amazing things because of living cells that are part of our body. Sometimes understanding the complexity of it also make it more magical as well. I also think that when things become magic, there's also a sense of experience. many times when we design technology, we don't just make gadget or object. We think about how this object and technology create experience that is magical to the person. So thinking from that magical experience and standpoint also really helpful for thinking about how do we create project that is inspiring to people. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is next for you, or what are you looking forward to in your work?
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to the time after COVID, for sure. And right now, I think everyone in my group sort of like take the equipment home. So we sort of setting up like our little kind of mini lab, or we have a hashtag called Home Lab, where we continue to work and prototype and inventing the future even in our home. But I'm also definitely missing sort of like human connection. We have a lot of like Zoom call and brainstorming online. It's different than having like a real human touch, and that's something that technology cannot overcome. Even though we are trying to think about technology as mentor or technology as extension of self, I think human is definitely something that's very magical and very important. So I'm looking forward to the time where we can go back to the lab and start to have this wonderful brainstorming and ideation time again.
Yeah, me too. We have a lot of questions from the audience, so I think Julia will jump in to give some of those.
Hey everyone. Hey Pat, thank you so much for sharing your work. That was awesome.
Thank you.
I'm of SciArt, and we have a lot of questions in from the audience, so we're going to get to as many as we have time for.
Sure.
You were just talking about kind of the limitations of Zoom within this time when we're still trying to have a human connection, but we're unable to see each other in person.
Yeah.
You and I only live 10 miles from each other. I wish this could be in person. We could actually have lunch together. But a question in from the audience: what is the biggest strength and limitation of on-body augmentation or interfaces?
Yeah, so the biggest limitation is that it's on the body, right? So you need to wear it, or you need to have it implanted, or somehow connected to the body. So that is one of the biggest limitation, which many people are trying to overcome. For example, there's a group in the Media Lab called Signal Kinetic, where they try to do the same thing of sensing the human body information like heart rate, EEG, or something like that. But using wireless signal or device that is off body, so that you can sort of like have this Star Trek machine that can go and scan group and then get all the health information you need, right? So having something attached to the body is definitely one of the biggest concern. However, that can be sort of like, if you design it well, it could be integrated to like your clothes or everyday object or like watch and stuff like that, or glasses and stuff like that. Another concern that people usually have is the idea of privacy, right? When you have device on your body, how do you make sure that it's not spying on something that is like, it's like a private information or information that you don't want to share with the world? Or, if you know that you have a specific, medical condition, how do you kind of make sure that that information doesn't, go out to the people that you don't want to, or, people that might exploit that information. So thinking about how do you control the flow of the data coming out from the wearable device and the wearable sensor is really a big issue. And one of the things that people in the lab have been exploring is to sort of like have all the system like machine learning and information processing unit, everything be kind of packaged in the device. So the device doesn't need to send information to the server or to the AI, in the place that you don't know, right? The device can only send sort of like what we call it wisdom. It's not like inspirational wisdom or anything, but sort of like the insight that is abstracted and anonymized to maybe like a hospital, so they can understand like the overall health condition of people in the area, but not knowing which data come from who. So stuff like that could be really helpful for the future of privacy and wearable device.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's definitely a big concern. A question in about your background, kind of how you came to work in this antidisciplinary area. We have an audience member who's just interested in your journey before the Media Lab.
Yeah, so so I think the first thing that kind of get me into this is dinosaur. I was a fan of dinosaurs since I was a kid. Yeah, And my parents told me that if you want to learn more about science or learn more about dinosaur, you need to learn science. So science was sort of like something that my parents connect me with after they know that I love dinosaur. And when I was a kid, another thing that I was doing a lot was like drawing these dinosaur, right? So my parents like, oh, you know, you want to draw a dinosaur, well, you should study art or, you know, learn about how, you know, artists create this magical artwork. So I start to learn more about that, and I really think that, you know, there's no sort of like distinction between art and science, because at the end it's about dinosaur, right? You use art to communicate or draw a dinosaur, and you use science to understand how the dinosaur work and what the time period the dinosaur was living in. So I was sort of like embracing this art and science since I was a kid. And the book Biodesign was sort of like something that opening up me to this opportunity that, oh, there are actually people that are doing art and science. They don't just go work in the lab or go work in the studio, but they do things that is kind of connecting these two worlds together. And I got that when I was in high school. And after that, I was sort of like following this research and try to kind of put myself in the condition. I did my undergrad at the Arizona State University, and I was drawn to that university because there's a Biodesign Institute, which connected to the book that I had, and I think that that's going to be an awesome place. And it was a really awesome place, and I get to, you know, work with, you know, scientists that work on like bacteria that, you know, eliminate uranium from contaminated water, to like artists that work on dance and media and stuff. So I start to learn so like different things that are connected, and and I applied to the media lab. Yeah, and I got in, and I get to have this fun time working with this technology. Yeah.
And it all comes back to the dinosaur. I love
It's
that.
all back to the dinosaur. That's why I start with it, because it's how I start my journey. You know, it's something very meaningful to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a question in from a fellow Media Lab member from the Tangible Media Group. The question is, the state-of-the-art ML algorithms call for large-scale data sets to work well. How do we overcome this limitation when intimate data like biomarkers are difficult to collect or obtain at a large scale easily?
Yeah, that's a really, really important question. And I don't think that we ultimately figure out yet. But I think that, people are looking into what we call synthetic data. So sort of like using another machine learning model to create so like synthetic data that you can use to train or augment the limited data that you have, and create sort of like variation of it, so that you have a larger data set to train your machine learning model. Another way that people are sort of like trying to figure out this issue is to design like a better sensor, and so like sensor that is easy to deploy, so that you can collect more data to feed into the system. And I think part of this challenge is that you want, you know, data that is like inclusive, right? You don't want to leave specific group of people out. That is one of the biggest issue in like healthcare and so on, right? We want information that's sort of like representative of the population, not, you know, specific type of human being. So more accessible, more easier to deploy device and stuff like that would really help contribute to this, data science advancement. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We have a number of questions about the food project,
Yeah.
about how the algorithm works between the EEG headset and the 3D printed output, and
Yeah.
kind of, you know, what the optimal translation is there.
Yeah.
If you could just talk a little bit about
Sure.
the nuts and bolts behind that project.
For sure. So the machine learning model, we train it on what is called the deep data set, which is a data set of emotion collected from people watching different video that is labeled with different sort of like emotional value. And these data sets have been used to train machine learning model to sort of like analyze human emotion in psychology and cognitive science research. So we use that data set to train our model. And once the EEG headset sort of like pick up the signal, send it to the machine learning and get the emotional value, we have different sort of like sub algorithm that interpret that emotional value into the final food. We have one that is sort of like looking at the sort of like the arousal value and convert it into different size of the food. So changing the size of the 3D object that get printed into the 3D printed food. So that's one type of algorithm. The second one, we sort of like have like a mapping of like different 3D object two different emotion. Like you're happy, we print one type of food for you. If you're sad, we print the food in another size, in another shape for you, and stuff like that. So changing the appearance of the food based on your emotional value was the second one. And then the last one was we looked at the way that you can print sort of like letter or sentence with this edible material. So we kind of think of it as, you wake up, you have, emotion, you might have nightmare or good dreams or whatever. And the food will kind of talk to you like, have a good day, or, oh, we recognize that you were sad, but today's going to be better. So we're thinking about the playful way that food can sort of communicate with you when you wake up, in your breakfast. If the food can be sort of like the first edible message that you receive. And there's something poetic about eating the message or eating or consuming your emotion. People say that, you are what you eat, but now you're eating what you are. And I think that's sort of like an interesting juxtaposition there. Yeah.
Absolutely. We have a question more about the times we're in now. Have you thought of any ways, presumably in wearable ways, in which this kind of lack of human contact problem highlighted by COVID could be solved or addressed?
Yeah. So there are several projects in the Media Lab that are focusing on COVID right now. We have one project called Saving Face, where we use like information coming from your wearable device like smartwatch to prevent people from touching face. So every time that the sensor pick up that you're gonna touch your face, which might lead to having you contaminated with COVID, the device will sort of like give you sort of like feedback that, oh no, don't touch your face and stuff like that. So that is one way that wearable device could sort of like help you prevent sort of like risky behavior during this time. We also have a project. There's an open source called Wearable Sanitizer that is basically a wearable device that shoot out alcohol, like the way that Spider-Man shoot out the spider web, right? So that you can seamlessly and easily sanitize yourself and object around you. And we also have a project that is like a chatbot where we deployed early on when the COVID was still new to society, so people can assess their risk factor by just talking to the bot and ensure that they are not doing things that harmful to themselves. Yeah, so that is called COVID bot project. Yeah.
Awesome! I can't wait to see those. We have a lot of questions, but only time for one more.
Sure.
So maybe one that zooms us out a little bit. This question is, it seems there are numerous intriguing applications and motivations for these technologies that you use. What possible paths and motivations do you see as the most important, and why?
Well, that's a really hard question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really hard question. I think I'll quote my advisor, Professor Patty Mas. She said that at the end, what we do here at the Media Lab is not about the bit, it's always about people. We're trying to find a creative or alternative way of augmenting or enhancing human life, and with the goal of allowing a person to become the person that they want to become, or have like a meaningful and fulfilling life. Right. So I think, and we are experimenting that with different ways. Some of them is, less less traditional. Some of them is like very controversial or very unorthodox. But, as Stella said, we want to create multiple version of futures that we can explore, so that at the end we can pick the one that we think is meaningful to us or applicable for our lifestyle. So so like transitioning from my master degree into like PhD, I definitely need to dig more into some of these projects. But right now I'm sort of like having fun exploring different potential future, while also thinking about the ethic and the ethical consideration about all this work, and try to show that technology can have a benefit to humanity. Right now we have like so many kind of negative connotation about technology that has been designed very poorly, or designed in a way that is like very anti-human. We think that the work that we at the Media Lab is definitely on the opposite of that, and we're trying to bring humanity and the value to the work that we do. And again, it's not about bit, it's all about people. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Pat. That was really, really fantastic, and I keep up with your work. Thanks everyone who tuned in, and I will let Carrie wrap us up here.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you. Those were some great questions. It's been so nice to talk with you, Pat. As always, you can join our mailing list at sciartinitiative.org to keep up to date on everything we're doing. And we hope you'll join us for our next lunch break, which will be next Wednesday at 1 p.m., June 17th, with Jody Rash. Thanks so much again. Bye, everyone.
Cool. Thank you.